Hey prospectors, Tony from Gold Talk, Leonora again. We've had about 50 mil of rain up here in Leonora overnight, which is quite a lot. It's a bit of a bugger because that's going to put us out of production for about the next 2, possibly 3 weeks till things dry out. But you know, on the bright side, that's a first world problem, and any rain up here is fantastic for animals and plant life and just the general environment. Leonora has an average rainfall, I believe, of around 200 millimetres or about 8 inches, sometimes all at once. So there's not a lot of water to go around, and I think it's important that we don't sort of complain too much when it does. It just means we have to work around things. It means that we're going to be working in the yard for a while, which means I get to advance the dry blowing project, which hopefully our few subscribers feel a part of. More on that a little bit later. And do a couple of videos like this. What I wanted to do was get into the theory behind dry blowing. There's lots of people wanting to get into it, which is fantastic. But I sort of feel that knowledge is critical. The purpose of this video is to go through some of the considerations of dry blowing, and I need to do that before we actually get into the nitty-gritty of how the little buggers work and when they don't work. The first thing we need to do is talk about the particle size of the dirt that will be going through the dry blower. I'm going to be using a few big words and basically I have no idea what they mean, but hopefully I'm going to be using them in a correct context. The old story of if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bull dust, is something I will fall back on every time. So here's one I prepared earlier. This is a laboratory sieve. Generally they're hideously expensive, and generally they're made out of brass or stainless steel. Got to justify the big cost somehow. And this is a sieve of 600 micron. And there's basically 2 units of measurement that you're going to encounter in the prospecting and mining game. So we have a system where we have our American mates. They use a system called mesh, or a mesh size, and that is, and this is a little bit confusing, it turns me around as well sometimes, but basically mesh is the amount of holes per linear inch. Okay, so with mesh, the larger the number, the smaller the holes, because the larger the number, there's more holes in that linear inch. In Australia, we use a system called microns, and it's exactly the opposite, because a micron is a unit of measurement. And so basically, the smaller the number of microns, the smaller the hole. So when we get down to 37 microns, it's really, really tiny. And I chose that number deliberately because 37 microns is sort of kinda the limit where the human eye can see a particle, in this case a particle of gold, and that is an unassisted human eye. So we haven't got our magnifying glasses or our 10 times loop on, something like that. It's around that 37 micron that we can just about lose that particle of gold size in the dish. This 37 micron, which equates to about 400 mesh for our American mates, is about this limit of unassisted detectability, visibility by the human eye. And so the question is, why is this important? Okay. It's one of the most critical things when we talk about gravity recovery of gold. Now, you have 2 major types of gold recovery in the industry, whether it's prospecting or in mining companies, and that is you have chemical recovery, so carbon in pulp, carbon in leach. There's other methods where they're basically using cyanide to melt the gold particles, and they can be retrieved via a number of different processes further down the line. Most of the time we're talking about a 95%, 94%, 95% recovery if it's the right kind of gold, and basically that's small particle gold. If the gold is what we call coarse, so it's greater than that 37 micron, and that 37 micron is just a ballpark, but it's greater than that sort of 40 micron mark, then gravity recoverability is the best way to go, and its efficiency increases with the size of the gold particles. So the bigger the particles, the easier it is to get. Okay, this sort of cutoff of unassisted visibility is what the experts say, and what it sort of distills down in Tony's brain is pretty straightforward, and that is, if you can see it, you can catch it with gravity. Okay, if you need your eye loop, you're going to need cyanide and other methods to get. We're talking about dry blowing, which is a gravity recovery process. That is, we are creating an environment where specific gravity, that is gold being heavier than the bits around it, if we create the right environment, the gravity can drop out. And that is, if it drops to the bottom, we have the ability to scalp it or capture that gold. Okay. The thing is that anything below that 37 micron, so 37 micron and less, we are not going to catch with a dry blower, a sluice, any gravity recovery system is not going to catch it. There will be a percentage, but again, the finer the gold, the less the percentage of recovery gets. Right? The harder and harder it is to catch it. So you may get a small amount of gold out of a wet plant that's sort of that minus 37 micron or that minus 400 mesh, but it's only going to be a fraction of what has actually gone out the end of the sluice or the end of the riffle trace on a dry blower. And you just have to accept that you are not going to get 100% of the gold. One of the interesting things that I find, and I'm sure that there'll be some experienced prospectors that will argue this point with me, but they'll say, well, I'm catching 95% of the gold. Well, you're not. You might be catching 95% of the gold from 37 micron up. Okay, so you're getting the coarse gold, but if it's present, you'll be missing out on the fine gold. Now, I can reconcile myself with that quite happily because, as I've said a number of times, our business model is to get in, get the easy gold and get out. The thing is that I want as much gold as I can get, but I know that I have to do it economically, and well, that's actually the only consideration, but most economical and easy way for me to do it. Why would I go broke trying to get that last 10-15% of gold? It's not worth my time to do that. I'll let someone else do that. So that's it in a nutshell. So what I'm trying to get around to say in a pretty clumsy way is that the most important thing we can do when we're dry blowing or running a sluice, because it's all pretty much the same, is we need to understand that it's going to have its limitations, and we need to rig up our systems that's going to suit. The most efficient way of recovering the fine gold is going to be with a centrifuge. All right? That does the best job of the lot. Sluices are as in wet gold recovery, wet plants are a blunt instrument. Dry blowers are a blunt instrument. Okay, so they're only getting for that 37 and above. It's actually one of the things I use every day when we're doing cleanups, is to make sure that dry blower is running as best as it can. I'm not interested in the big stuff that I can see easily, even though I am, but I'm not. What I'm looking for in the cleanup dish is all the small stuff that you can just barely see. Right, now if I'm catching that, I'm probably catching everything above it as well in size. So that really is the most important thing. In the interest of trying to demonstrate this point a little bit further, what I've done, I've got set up on our Gemini table here, and there will be a video coming out there because one of the subscribers got a little bit demanding, so I will do that. So what I've done is I've grabbed a 10 kilo sample off a work site up here in the goldfields, a 10 kilo sample. There's a reason why I choose 10 kilos, because it will give us a representative sample of an area when it comes to gold extraction. And what I've done is I've just very basically, I've grabbed that 10 kilos and I've separated it out into 4 fractions. And we call this a fractional analysis of the dirt. Well, that's what I call it when I want to sound very, very important and clever, which is only on the odd occasion, usually when I've had too many of those beers. Anywho, the most important thing is because we started with a known weight, which was 10 kilos, we can separate out the fraction and we can weigh it. So for example here we have the rock. So this is the plus 10 millimeter size. Okay, so this is everything from 10 mil above out of that 10 kilo parcel. And you can see here that on the lid that this weighs 1.5 kilo, and that represents 15% of that 10 kilo parcel that we processed. So the oversize is around 15%. We then put it through a smaller mesh, and it works out here that the plus 2 millimeter fraction, okay, so plus 2 mil to minus 10 mil, is again about 1.5 kilos, which represents about 15% of our 10 kilo sample. Moving on down the fraction, we have 50 micron. Now we're getting real close to that sort of 40 micron, 37 micron area, but I'm just using the sieves that I've got in my gold room to make it easy on me. Of course, I am lazy, remember that. So the plus 50 micron to minus 2 millimeter, so from there up to the 2s, that weighed 3.5 kilograms, and that represents 35% of what's going on. That's quite a significant figure. I find that quite interesting. And you can see here that it's beautiful. This is great dry blowing dirt. This is where you want to be, here and here. That's sensational. Now the other lot that goes through is this lot. So this is minus 50 micron. So this is the small stuff. It would have been a little bit more accurate with a like a nice little 37 mesh or a 40 mesh sieve. I think it will still prove the point. So with a minus 50 micron, so we're getting down to the point where if this was gold particles in a dish, you know, you had one little sort of gold particle there, you're not going to see it. We're getting pretty close to that, and you can see that this stuff is fine. It's dust, okay, but it's present. And the thing is that weighs in at 3.5 kilos, and that represents 35% of our ground that we're working. Again, all these things are approximate, but it will hopefully bring a point home. All right, so 35% of our dirt here and 15% of our dirt up here. So that means we've got a total of 50% of our dirt is no good to us. Now, we can argue quite easily that the oversize, which won't go through the mesh, because generally I'll run a screening mesh. I'll generally put through about 13 mil minus. The old classic half-inch is what I'll run through the dry blower. So again, the numbers are approximate. But this area here, you know, if we got a nice sort of 10-ounce nugget that size, or a specimen, we could detect that. So that is still manageable, all right? In principle, that is absolutely manageable. This size, and this size, these fractions will go through the dry blower. But if we accept that below that 37 micron, we're not really going to catch, what it comes down to is we've got 50% of the dirt running through, which is okay. We can suck the gold out of that, and we've got 35% of the ground, that it could have all the gold in the world and we're not going to catch any of it. We might get a few specks here and there and what have you. So it's not worth arguing the point. It's a fact that anything below that 37 micron, if you can't see it, you can't catch it. If you can see it, you can catch it. That's the rule of thumb. What I find really interesting, and it's sort of something that I've always considered a hell of a lot, is if you want to increase productivity in your dry blower, the easiest way to gain 35% productivity is get rid of that 35% fraction. All right, it's an absolute no-brainer. This is the beauty of a constant air dry blower. So with dry blowers, there's two main types. There is constant air and there's bellows. I think it's really important to say that my experience is with constant air dry blowers and not with bellows dry blowers. I've got a good working knowledge of them, don't worry about that, but I haven't got the thousands of hours experience that I do with constant air. So I can always stand to be corrected. We're always learning. So what we're talking about is the airflow that is pumped into a dry blower riffle box with constant air. The clue is in the name, and that is the air is blown in by a series of fans or different methods, and the airflow is constant. Okay, with a bellows, it's a interrupted airflow, and this sort of harks back to the olden days of dry blowers, where because they didn't have a generator out in the paddock as we can today, it was all mechanical, and so they would have a bellows underneath the riffle that would pump up and down. Okay, and so what you would wind up and create an airflow through mechanical means, and so you wound up with this poof, 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 poof. Hang on, I'm not allowed to say that. You wind up with this, it's too hard, LGQ2BI, whatever. But you wind up with this inconsistent airflow, poof, 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 poof. And my personal opinion, and again, my experience is in one field, not in the other. My personal opinion is I don't think it matters a lot. And the reason why I say that, I think it's because once you have an operator that knows what they're doing and they get used to this system or this system, they'll make it work. Okay, that's just my honest opinion, is I don't think it really matters. A lot of people who run bellows operations will say it will catch fine gold. Well, the thing is, so will constant air when it's run right. Okay, but in both capacities, you are not going to catch that gold that's less than that 37 micron. Right, so you get that percentage, but not in volume. So this is the thing, is that constant air or bellows, tomatoes. I don't think it really matters. The reason why I like constant air is there's a few reasons for that, and one is that constant air is far more productive than bellows. So if I have a bellows of this size and the constant air bellows of the same size, I'm going to be putting 5 tons an hour, for the argument's sake, through this dry blower, the bellows, and for the same amount of effort, I'm going to probably be putting 10 to 15 tons through the constant air dry blower. Throughput, when it's run right, which has to be the constant given, but throughput equals gold, equals recovery. So why am I going to put exactly the same amount of effort in and get a half or a third of the gold out? It makes no sense to me. That's why constant air I like. The other reason I like it is that the key to any gold recovery, it doesn't matter wet, dry, whatever, the key is consistency. Okay, consistency in feeding and consistency in recovery. Right? So it's all same, boring and steady, no interruptions, just nice. The thing about a bellows dry blower is that it is constantly interrupting. So it's a fluff, 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 fluff. So you create this fluidized bed, which I'll be talking about soon, but you create this fluidized bed that goes up and then it settles, up, settles. The gold has a chance to drop out and then it doesn't. The gold has a chance to drop out and then it doesn't. With a constant air, when it's set up right, is that you are, through, again, vibration and air, you are creating a fluidized bed that will constantly allow that gold, utilizing its specific gravity, being heavy. So once the particles of dirt are separated, the gold has a possibility to drop out. And being constant air, it does a couple of things. It keeps this constant fluidized bed, so there's more opportunity for the gold to run out, and it's consistent. But what it can also do nice and easily is it can blow away a good percentage of that minus 50 mesh, or that minus 50 micron, minus 40 micron dirt that's non-productive. Okay, so when you see a dry blower that I'm tuning or have tuned in, there'll be a lot of fine dirt that's zipping around the place. And it's that fine dirt that I know you can carry gold, there's no doubt about that, but I'm never going to catch it. So if I can get 10% of that dirt blown away, then I'm in the right track. So where does this leave us in a practical sense? Well, what you'll see me do all the time with the dry blower when I'm looking to see whether the thing's working or not, is I'll stand in front of the trays when it's running with my respirator on. But where the riffle plates are coming down, so the recovery box is there, I will hold my hand up about 6 inches off the top, okay, and I will let the dirt fall that's being blown around, okay. So when I bring my hand out, I can feel it, even if I can't see it, but I can feel it, and it's talcum powder, right? It's this minus 40 micron fluff, the poofed dirt. So that is what I want to be in my hand. If I had bigger items, all right, so a bit of crunchy stuff going there, then my air's too high. It's as simple as that. Because I'm starting to blow up the heavier fractions, and that's where I can blow out gold quite easily. So it's that fine line between getting the minus sort of 40 micron dirt in my hand when it's just above the riffle plates, but almost none of the crunchiest stuff. So prospectors, I hope that's been of interest to some and of help to others. It's a subject that's really important to get your head around, and that's why I thought before we even start talking about how dry blowers work, we need to understand some of the basic physics involved in it, or the basic principles involved in it. So the last thing for me is a huge thank you for people and your support of our last videos. It sort of went viral quite quickly, and I think we gained about another 2 or 3 subscribers out of that. Most importantly, for our 3 or 4 current subscribers, I don't want you to feel unloved. I don't want you to feel as though we're going to forget you. I don't want that sort of middle child syndrome where you think, well, there's new subscribers on the block and they're going to get a lot more attention to you. That's not the case. I don't care how massive this channel gets. We will always put the effort into you, our subscribers and our family on this YouTube channel. And now there's 7 of us. So the family increases, and so does the excitement. Prospectors, we'll see you next video. Cheerio.